Welcome into Surviving Paradise, the podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by Jehovah's Witnesses, specifically the governing body, that we are all living in a modern-day spiritual paradise provided by them. I'm your host here, Stacy Bauman, former elder, ministerial servant, and a little guy raised as a Jehovah's Witness in the 70s and the 80s. As I do, a quick warning, we try to have some fun here while we heal, so each episode can feature sarcasm, humor, can get serious, tears, you name it. Never meant to offend. Simply my take. Thank you for being here. Well, folks, here we are. At the outset, I'd like to share some rather depressing and somber news, so you've been warned. I'd like to provide some updates from events happening this week, starting on July 7th, 2025. Please take a minute, sit back, and consider. As of this past Monday, according to the Global Disaster Alert and Coordination System, there have been countless deadly floods worldwide. Italy and Poland are currently under flood alerts. And do I need to bring up the state of Texas and the grotesque tragedy with little people that happened this week in the United States? Wildfires are ongoing in France, Turkey, and Syria. Indonesia is experiencing volcanic activity. Colombia and India are experiencing severe weather and storms that is threatening lives. Several countries are facing ongoing drought situations, including Botswana, Mozambique, Angola, and Namibia. There are several dengue fever outbreaks in Honduras. People are dying. There are flash floods happening in Armenia. There's tropical cyclone Remal in Bangladesh and floods and landslides in Sri Lanka. But it doesn't stop there. According to feedingamerica.com, there is globally an estimated 37.7 million children suffering from acute malnutrition, with over 10 million experiencing severe acute malnutrition, which is fatal if untreated. 37 million. According to the Geneva Academy, there are 114 armed conflicts, wars, and violence taking place today at the time of this podcast recording around the world, with an untold fatality count, including women and children. According to the World Health Organization, there are so many active diseases and pandemics today, they cannot provide a set number in July 2025, with a list so long I'm not going to bother to hand count them. And on top of all of this, Jehovah's Witnesses are told that there is an invisible, vicious, sadistic, perverted killer hunting them. But, well, as you may or may not know, he's invisible. Nothing to be anxious about that. You can't see him. So they can't even see him when he's coming or to protect themselves. They call him Satan the devil. And he actually hunts people, specifically Jehovah's Witnesses, with a mob of demonic friends no one can number. And well, let's get it out of the way early this week. It all kind of started with my guy Noah. From the March 15th, 2007 Watchtower, 26 and 27 are the pages. The faithful slave tells us this, quote, "The inspired scriptures tell us that sometime before the great flood of Noah's day, certain angels began to take an unusual interest in the women on earth. Unusual indeed." quote, for a wrong purpose, the heavenly sons of the true God began to notice the daughters of men, that they were good looking, states the Bible, and they went taking wives for themselves, namely all whom they chose. The spirit creatures who thus disobeyed God in Satan's rebellion against Jehovah, when Jehovah brought the flood upon mankind, the Nephilim and their human mothers perished. The rebel angels were forced to dematerialize their human bodies and return to the spirit realm. They went home to Jehovah's house in heaven. Never mind, back to the quote, ever since the wicked angels lost their original position, they have been the demon companions of Satan and have served his evil interests. From that time onward, the demons have no longer had the power to materialize human bodies. Why, nobody knows. Back to the quote, however, they can entice men and women to engage in various forms of sexual perversion. Demons also actively deceive mankind by means of spiritism, which can involve such things as magic spells, voodoo, spirit mediums, smurfs. No, sorry, that added that, end quote. But it continues. The Watchtower, Public Edition, page 5 from 2016, says this, quote, Satan and his demons are depraved and cruel. They are enemies of mankind and have contributed to much of the suffering on earth, end quote. So look out. They're invisible, and they're likely right behind you. Or if you were anything like me as a kid, I thought they were under my bed. It was terrifying. But now, go enjoy your day. With all of this good news I've just shared with you, I'd like to offer a small source of comfort from the only 11 men God and his Son trust to speak for them on planet Earth. From the Watchtower of August 2017, page 10, paragraph 10, we are told, quote, what can help us not to be anxious over anything and to experience the peace of God? Paul's words to the Philippians show us that the antidote to worry is prayer. So when we are anxious, we need to turn our worries into prayers. Pray to Jehovah in full faith, knowing that he cares for you. End quote. Yes, even in these last days and everything I just told you that never end, Jehovah's Witnesses are told they can count on Jehovah's protection. He's keenly watching. He's very interested, particularly in Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, I mean, kinda. Sort of. Because we're also told from the Faithful Slave in the 1986 yearbook, page 234, quote, such experiences taught the brothers that Jehovah strengthens his servants to endure, even as far as death. But many survived. Many. Some escaped after being buried alive, shot at by firing squads, beaten and abandoned as dead, tied and set ablaze. No wonder they now spoke of Jehovah as a God of saving acts. End quote. Wait a minute. Did they just read what they printed? Yearbook 86, page 234. They were set on fire, shot at, buried alive, but Jehovah saved me. Some of them, many survived. Just not all. So there's that. Yes, with all the aforementioned misery told to us as spiritual food from the governing body, taking place on earth is but a small snapshot of what mankind is dealing with in July 2025. You, dear listener, will be relieved to know that the Almighty and his Son, Jesus Christ, King of Jehovah's Witnesses since 1914, has seen fit to have the governing body release Governing Body Update number 4, hosted by none other than an earthwide favorite, King Stephen Lett. And while the aforementioned facts that I just reeled off, they may alarm you, I'm here to tell you that you have no reason to be alarmed. Even if you've been waiting your entire life for the last days to actually end, they are called the last days. Is this going to end? Jehovah and his son have their eye on the ball, and they know exactly what they're doing. They miss nothing and are well ahead of Satan and all those demons, as well as the deadly traps they're setting for the rest of us. This governing body update clearly proves that the celestial creators that we're told care so much for us, our hairs are all numbered, that they have our best interests in mind. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the latest round of comfort and wisdom from the faithful and discreet slave. I know you've likely heard that this includes some new light from heaven, and it does. And well, if you haven't heard, you're not going to want to miss what's on the minds of Jehovah and Jesus in July of 2025. This update is just over 17 minutes long. And according to Stephen Lett, we are going to consider how to use the Bible to make good decisions. Safe to say, we won't be hearing much about Lot or King David. We're not going to talk about them when we talk about good decisions. Nonetheless, this chosen king is going to show us how this ancient form of frozen Holy Spirit can help you and I in 2025 think more clearly, how we can make good decisions. But before he shares that life-saving knowledge, he says he would first like to share updates on recent special conventions. He takes us first to Bolivia, where he tells the audience that, quote, this was the largest theocratic event ever held, where some 1,900 delegates came from some 10 countries. The peak attendance was 19,233, and 277 got baptized, end quote. There is much that could be said here, but it's all been said before. But I'll leave you this small fact. There are 12.24 million people in Bolivia, which means that all those book carts, all those missionaries, all those millions of dollars in videos, and the billions of dollars in publications and magazines, well, they were able to get 277 people of the 12.24 million, which is exactly 0.00226307%, much less than 1%, to join the governing body in their hope for all the rest of us as we look to live forever on a paradise earth. 277 people. He's very excited about that in a country of almost 13 million. Those types of numbers, when compared with the billions of dollars used to reach those 277, well, you got to admit, it truly sheds some light on things like the Watchtower of July 15th, 1988, page 15, which tells us this, quote, Jehovah is now speeding up the ingathering of sheep-like ones. Surely then, this is no time for his people to slow down in their kingdom preaching and disciple-making work. Indeed, increased witnessing activity by so many more publishers and pioneers is now stirring up the world field. And the momentum of this joyous ingathering will yet grow, according to Isaiah 60:11, end quote. Yeah, speeding it up indeed. That's some breakneck speed in these last days. Once you've taken the young kids out of the 277 baptized in Bolivia, the number shrinks even more, country of almost 13 million. But look, at least they're no longer enemies of God, right? At least they're not that. What are the other 19,000 plus in attendance for at this convention, I might add? He said it's the biggest one they've ever had in Bolivia. Who wouldn't want to live in paradise? 19,000 people came, 200 got that? Okay. But carry on, King Stephen, and he does. He then takes the audience to the special convention in Albania, where the peak attendance was 8,987, with 2,000 from 17 other countries included in the number. So for those wondering, there are 2.7 million people in Albania, meaning Jesus gathered to the convention, 0.327276% of the 2.7 million people living in Albania, meaning that's all that showed up. And most were from other countries. I guess using a number is supposed to impress us. It does. Look, we were all there. Jehovah's Witnesses hear the number and think, wow, they're busy over there in Albania, until they do the math. He then says, quote, "This was the largest convention of Jehovah's Witnesses ever held in Albania, and 83 people were baptized," end quote. And I got to tell you, the country of Albania has a fascinating religious history, including the fact that Mother Teresa was Albanian, if you didn't know that. And as of the 2023 census, about 8.38% of Albania's population were declared as Catholic. Yeah, interesting. 83 people got baptized. And with that, Stephen Lett is done with updates. And yes, I did say it out loud while watching. How are those folks in prison doing in Eritrea? Remember them from January? Nothing. We got nothing. No updates. Not on them. And then King Stephen Lett says the following, quote, "But now, let's discuss how we as Christians can make wise decisions using Bible principles rather than relying on a list of rules," end quote. I'm not going to try to do his voice here. I thought about it halfway through. Not going to try to do it, but he's in full Stephen Lett form. And yes, he's serious. He made the comment, use your brain rather than, quote, relying on a list of rules. The same organization that features a secret elder's handbook that has 29 chapters, including an appendix and an 18-page index, all of it featuring rules that can get you shunned, killed, or kicked out of paradise forever. And Stephen Lett wants to talk to us about using our heads and not relying on rules. This is rich. And before a Jehovah's Witness apologist wants to sound off, I'm going to drop one such example found in that book. It's in the index. It's in the second to last page if you want to reference it. It has its own heading. The heading is sexting. Yeah, sexting. Along with 4 cited references in the Elder Handbook, not the Bible, a handbook that is made up of nothing but rules. All rules that can get you kicked out of Jehovah's Witnesses or even killed. Same book. We will all wait while you show us the same rules in Jehovah's perfect book, the Bible, he gave it to us, condemning something like sexting. Sexting? There's a section in the Elder Handbook. While you're at it, by the way, if you're a Jehovah's Witness apologist, please let me know if I can get on Jehovah's Friends and Family plan to save money. I'd love to get on his plan, save a few bucks. By the way, is he with AT&T or Verizon? You let me know. Sexting. Nonetheless, Stephen Lett's going to talk to us about using the brains we were born with over rules. But then, Steve confirms in front of the universe that this organization has been insulting, lying, gaslighting, and duping millions of people for decades. He admits it on video, immortalized forever, until, of course, they decide to take it down. Anyone with two firing brain cells will look at what he says next and simply sit there in awe. All of the lost years, the potential, the money, the health, the family, all of it. And here's what he says, quote, sit back. Consider this simple illustration. As children, our parents gave us rules to keep us safe. They likely said, always hold my hand when crossing the street. Our parents made that rule to protect us from real danger. But as we got older, we no longer needed to hold mom or dad's hand. Did the danger go away? No. Instead, we learned to look at the traffic in front of us and cross the road safely. After all, it would seem odd if a healthy 30-year-old man still needed to hold his mother's hand to cross the street. End quote. Are you sitting down? Let that cute little illustration resonate as Brother Let drops his next set of comments. From the first word he says, until he makes his point, remember, the point being, none of us are little tiny kids. We're not babies who need to hold our parents' hand in all things. You don't need to hold mommy or daddy's hand. And it would sure be weird, according to Stephen, if a 30-year-old man was still holding mommy's hand to do basic things like crossing the street. Any born and raised Jehovah's Witness knows what's coming next. The old theocratic school taught us all about illustrations, and it taught Stephen too, followed by, their version of how to apply it, application. So here it comes. He then says, quote, likewise, mature Christians don't need a rule for every situation. Instead, we look at each situation and consider Bible principles. If no Bible law is directly involved, then we use our Bible-trained conscience to make a good decision. End quote. Hard stop. Candidly, I'm gathering myself here. Did I hear that correctly? You don't say, Brother Let. Really? We don't need rules if there's no Bible law? Really? So, if we just heard King Stephen Let correctly, and trust me, I hit rewind on his video a dozen times to make sure I locked in every word, you're saying we don't need to hold mom and dad's hand anymore. And by application, Stephen, your hand and your 10 best friends on the governing body. Because we're all grown adults now. And if the Bible is silent on a matter and doesn't have, the word you used was law, we can make decisions for ourselves? I mean, it's almost like Jehovah's Witnesses, well, they don't even need you for anything. Did this realization just come to you and your 10 best friends? Is this new light to the 11 of you? See last week's discussion of 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17 that tells me it's all I need to make decisions. Then when you're done reading that couple of verses, flip your Bibles over to Psalms 146:3, and well, would you look at that? It says never to follow men. We have everything we need to make decisions, and Psalms 146:3 says we should never put our trust in follow men. I got it from a couple of passages in the Bible, Jehovah's book, not your elder book. And unfortunately for the governing body, there isn't time for them to delete this video at the moment. Stephen Lett and his comments have been captured forever for any Jehovah's Witness who wants to know the truth about the governing body in this organization. You don't need them. Let go of mommy's hand. Unless there's a Bible law, and you can read that for yourselves too. But I want to go back to his very powerful illustration and his attempt to apparently shame a 30-year-old man for continuing to hold someone's hand. Does this, by the way, apply to decades of you in the governing body telling grown men where they can grow hair on their body? How about what grown women can do with their legs and clothes? Would this, by the way, apply to all things blood fractions if I'm facing an emergency? I can't seem to find a Bible law on that. And blood transfusions from another loving human aren't mentioned in the Bible. Does this apply to things like baptism questions? Does this apply to me getting a little extra schooling for a career maybe? Make a little bit of money? By the way, I'm asking for the fellas, are vasectomies still a no-no? Why were you telling us not to get organ transplants? They weren't doing those in the Bible. Can I please see the Bible verses and laws on smoking medicinal marijuana? Can you show me where kids aren't allowed to play sports? And finally, wow, this is awkward. Does this mean, can I be delicate? There's no Bible law on this, so I'm wondering, is it okay if me and my partner, another consenting adult, marriage mate, whatever, can I put my mouth where I want to on their body in the privacy of our own home without facing your wrath, Stephen? You see, Brother Lett, I don't want to be that stupid 30-year-old male you're referring to, still holding on to mommy and daddy's hand. But I don't know how to tell you this. Hair grows on my chin naturally, and well, to be upfront, I actually like to please my partner in the bedroom. But there it is. Digitally immortalized forever. Jehovah's Witnesses, pay attention. The governing body of this organization just went on camera and admitted to you that they are a high control, rule-making cult. And if you've been obeying them, I got bad news for you. You're just like a 30-year-old baby man holding mommy's hand because you just want to cross the street in life. And if you're a Jehovah's Witness apologist, I'm here for it. What say you? What say you after governing body update number 4? Explain to us, and we are in a safe place, trust me. How do you go to another meeting and listen to a word these men say to you? You don't need a long list of rules according to them. You don't need to do anything. You can make your own decisions if there's not a law found in the Bible. And you don't want to be a man baby. Stephen's words, not mine. How do you listen to another word from these men as a grown adult? But Stephen Lett continues to spit out pure gold. I'm guessing he drew the short stick, by the way, on who gives this update, based on what he says next. While the obvious, and I've been pitching it for at least 2 years, while the obvious rebranding of Jehovah's Witnesses continues with an eye on the future generations, the people they're trying to capture, they continue to try to bury their past by ripping off their rule-making Band-Aids. And then they get on camera and they just kind of shrug. They just shrug. Oh, yeah, those were some real, yeah. Pay no attention to that. Without a second thought to the people that have literally died. They're dead. Obeying rules they made that are not found in the Bible and that they apparently don't have to apologize for. I guess we're just supposed to take away from this that, oh well, at least they'll put in a good word for me with Jesus as the resurrection, right? We are truly witnessing epic times in the history of Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm not kidding. That's not hyperbole. And we're witnessing these guys trying to slowly right the wrongs of the guys that came before them. They too were chosen by Jehovah and Jesus, but that doesn't matter anymore. It won't be long before the Watchtower Library is gone from the website. I've been calling it for the past few years. I think it's going to be gone, or it's going to need a password to access it. Their eyes right now in this organization are on long-term survival. There are propaganda movies to be made, unborn children to trap. If this particular section of this update doesn't get the attention of a long-time Jehovah's Witness, just accept the fact, and I'm speaking to myself here, folks, that person has just checked out. They've checked out. They just don't want to know the truth. In one of my favorite episodes from a couple of years ago, they've chosen the path of ignorance. That's their choice. Cognitive dissonance. They've checked out. Why do I say that? Because this entire religion is man-made rules. All of it. Every single thing in it. Their self-claimed authority is based on man-made distortions of the Bible. Everything about Jehovah's Witnesses renders you and me at one point that dumb 30-year-old male standing at the intersection holding their hands. Not to just cross the street known as life, but to wipe your ass, how to blow your nose, and to keep you from running altogether. In Lett's illustration, they have a firm grip on the hands of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they are not about to let them get away without a fight. But folks, King Lett isn't done in Governing Body Update number 4. He continues, quote, "For example, consider the use of symbols or customs that may have roots in false religion. In our vast organization," end quote. Hard stop, Stephen. Wait a minute. Hard stop. Who wants to tell him the Bible doesn't contain the word organization or claim that there is a future organization coming in the not yet discovered United States of America at the time of its writing? There it is. Even as he shames a 30-year-old for holding on to mommy's hand, he literally tightens the very grip they have on Jehovah's Witness hands. Organization? What? But let's let him finish the thought. He says, quote, "That spans 240 lands. Can you imagine how many symbols and customs our brothers encounter?" End quote. Well, yeah, Stephen, yes, we can. You see, oddly enough, just seconds ago, on this very same Governing Body Update number 4, you yourself treated us to images from Bolivia and Albania. You're right. Vastly different cultures, different symbols, different cultures. But look, I don't know where you're going here, Stephen. That's a lie, I do. You see, you're the same organization that printed this in the Watchtower. And I will admit here and now, this ridiculous, and I do mean ridiculous Watchtower, this one had a key role. I don't know if I've ever shared that before, in my personal exit. This one woke me up. It jolted me. I was the former Watchtower conductor for 8 years. Do you remember this one, Stephen? The Watchtower of November 15th, 2009, paragraph 19. And I just want to say before I read the quote from their Watchtower, remember, everybody, remember what Stephen's saying here. Don't be a man baby. Don't be a helpless 30-year-old who won't let go of their hand. Are you ready? November 15, 2009, Watchtower says, quote, there may be a proper time and place for some actions that would be inappropriate at a Christian meeting. For instance, suppose someone sought to have all in a group link arms or hold hands during such a prayer. This might offend or distract some, including visitors, who do not share our beliefs. Some marriage mates might discreetly hold hands, but if they embraced each other during public prayer, those who got a glimpse of such conduct might be stumbled. They might think or get the impression that the couple was focusing on their romantic relationship instead of reverence for Jehovah. End quote. Wow! Saved from impending death at Armageddon in one small paragraph. November 15th, 2009, Watchtower. Go look at this. A couple holding each other as they pray to Jehovah. Well, I'm pretty sure Jesus condemned that at oh wait. I guess Jesus didn't want grown adults to be stupid baby man 30-year-olds holding onto his hand. He doesn't mention holding hands during prayer anywhere in the Bible. There's no law, Stephen. You just told us. But the governing body also didn't want you to hold on to your spouse either. Never mind their hand. Don't hold your spouse's hand. Oh, man. Never mind those that are in attendance at this prayer with their head down, eyes closed, in reverential conversation with Jehovah. Apparently, according to this Watchtower, somehow miraculously catching a glimpse of you and your spouse in prayer holding hands? Like what the hell were they doing watching you during the prayer? What? But Governing Body Update 4 is showing us King Stephen Lett reminding us not to be babies, let go of their hand, and that they don't make rules. Make decisions based on what the Bible says. Might I add, this crossed my mind, a twofold cord cannot easily be torn in two, according to the Bible. Well, unless your brother or sister is spying on you during a prayer and they see you holding your spouse's hand. And then, we make a rule. And we put it in the November 15th, 2009 Watchtower, paragraph 19, for everybody to read. But we don't make rules. Here's a rule. I'm not kidding when I say this paragraph jolted me. I don't know why. Everybody's different. For whatever reason, it played a role in me waking up. I had an intense conversation with other witnesses about this. But again, let's let Stephen Lett continue to show us how we should think, my friends. I want to make good decisions. I don't want to hold mom's hand all my whole life. He continues with this, quote, how can we make good decisions about a certain symbol or custom? Here are 3 basic principles. Number 1, would Jehovah be offended by this? End quote. Oh no. Oh no. Yep. He quotes 2 Corinthians 6:17 and tells Christians to stay far away from anything that looks like false religion or spiritism. Okay. Based on his reasoning here, a Jehovah's Witness can easily conclude that Jehovah is very offended, apparently, by mates holding each other's hands during prayer. I don't know, I got it from the Watchtower. That apparently Jehovah is grossly offended by high school sports. He's offended by you playing instruments in a band. He's offended by higher education. He's offended by accepting job promotions. Or again, he's really offended how mates touch when they can't get enough of each other in private. Or until recently, my favorite, Jehovah was apparently very offended where body hair grows on our bodies, even though he created us with that hair. Because again, there are or has been rules around all of the things I just reeled off inside Jehovah's Witnesses. There's rules. It's a fact. But I can't wait to see what he says next. Okay, got it. Is Jehovah offended? Okay. He then says, quote, number 2, how would this affect others in the congregation? End quote. Always a favorite. Always a favorite even as an elder. What's everybody else thinking about me? As if that's important. He then points to Romans 14:19 through 21 to show us we should only do things that build people up. I guess he forgot the impact of what disfellowshipping and shunning does to people. Romans 14, only do things that build people up. I'm reading it here. Yeah, did he forget what shunning does to people? I don't know. Is he following this scripture? Verse 21 talks about not eating meat or drinking wine if someone is offended. Yeah, I guess context matters. Does Stephen know how much? Does he even know much about the book of Romans? Does he know the context of Romans, who it was written to, where it was written? Never mind. These are little details, and they just don't matter to the governing body, folks. We know it. You know I'm being truthful. He goes on to say that event customs that aren't considered wrong may stumble someone. And I'm looking at you Karens in the congregation. You remember who you are. These people are typically presidents of HOAs here in the United States. Everything offends them. He then says, quote, we would never want our actions to offend others needlessly, end quote. Well, Stephen, I got to tell you, I'm still offended personally. I mean, you just said it. We should never want the things we say, do, customs, anything we're doing to offend others. And I'm here to tell you, I'm still offended, Stephen, that you think that 6-month-old baby and other little people, little kids, that they're in the same category as Satan and the demons because you call them enemies of God. But I guess that's me. Should I be offended about that, Stephen? Please carry on with your wise counsel. Then he drops another bomb that only serves to expose the governing body for the high control clown show they truly are. He says, quote, at the same time, as mature Christians, we respect the right that others have to make their own decisions based on their Bible-trained conscience. End quote. Wait a minute. Get a load of this guy. Looking into the camera and flat lying to everyone. Do you now? Do you really respect others to make their own decisions? You respect the right of all people to make their own decisions about their children, whether they shun them or not, whether they go to college or not? Really? First, I have to say this. Wow, how noble of you, governing body guy. Who the hell asked for your opinion on our personal decisions anyway? Does that strike anyone else as odd? Why do I care what you think about my decisions? But second, I want to here suggest to Stephen Lett and the governing body, you guys really need some new people on the writing committee. You need people with brains. This is such a blatant lie, it's just well past comical. Or did you forget to add the part where you punish people when they make decisions you don't agree with? And that's not even the worst part. The worst part is you can get everyone else who loves them, including their family and friends, to punish them right alongside you for making their own decisions. There is virtually nothing a Jehovah's Witness can do in life without the organization led by them controlling their decisions. There is nothing, people. Nothing. Not unless you keep it secret. And every Jehovah's Witness watching this update knows it. How about hair? It's a big topic in heaven these days. Hair. How about hair color? You sisters out there, ever come to the Kingdom Hall with some nice new blue hair? How about your own body? How about what you put on your body? What you wear on your body? How about your career? How about whether you're educated or not? How about dating? How about marriage and who you marry? How about what you do once you're married in the bedroom, sex? How about what birth control you might be using? How about working out at the gym? What about yoga? How about what friends you choose and where you go with them? What about your entertainment? How about your music? What are you doing to manage your time? What about the internet? How about what you're doing as a parent? Wow. What about your money? Wait, you have private health issues? What about how you're choosing to make decisions on those? What about talking to your children? I could keep going, folks. There is nothing that is off limit to this organization for Jehovah's Witnesses. They comment and make rules on all of it. These 11 men take your money you send them and spend billions of dollars to tell Jehovah's Witnesses one thing. Wait for it. How you are to think. This man is a stone cold liar. He is on camera lying to millions of people. They have never and do not respect people's rights to make their own decisions. They never have, and they never will, because cults are about control. By allowing people to think for themselves, they would soon realize that they don't need the 11 guys in upstate New York. So they can't let them think for themselves. So even as they're telling you to not be a baby man and let go of their hand, they tighten their grip. You're about to see it. He continues by droning on about 1 Corinthians 9, about becoming all things to all people, blah, 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 and doing everything for the sake of the good news, blah, blah, blah. He references an Awake article. It's so fascinating. An Awake article from December 22nd, 1976, page 14, clarifying that Jehovah's Witnesses don't need to get upset about symbols and shapes that may have meant something different centuries ago. He shows us a heart, a fleur-de-lis, and a pomegranate. He shows it on screen. I want to remind everyone that was around in 1976 when this Awake was published, that it was at this time they were telling Jehovah's Witnesses that some little blue guys on Saturday morning cartoons must be avoided because they were actually demons. Yeah, the Smurfs. Same time this Awake article came out that he's referring to. You mean the kids watching the Smurfs didn't see them as demons and start worshiping Satan? Well, they actually didn't. But apparently none of this logic applies any longer. And they even said it back then. This message in this governing body update isn't even new. They're just lying to you. They're insulting you to your face. They said this stuff in 1976. He's using it in 2025. At the same time telling kids not to watch Smurf or Scooby-Doo. But I took a minute and I accessed the library, and this Awake article, December 22nd, 76, also said this, quote, "On the other hand, Just because idol worshippers at some time or place might use a certain design, that does not automatically mean that true worshippers must always shun it. What? For instance, figures of palm trees, pomegranates, and bulls were incorporated in the design of Jehovah's temple in Jerusalem. The fact that other religions might take these natural things that God created and use them as symbols in idol worship did not make it wrong for true worshipers to use them decoratively. Pay close attention, quote, "So the Christian needs to be primarily concerned about what? Not what a certain symbol or design possibly meant thousands of years ago, or how it might be thought of on the other side of the world, but what it means now to most people where he lives." End quote. Stephen Lett, you old dog. Stephen Lett. Look what you and the Heavens 11 just did. You showed us on video your gross incompetence and dishonesty from your own literature. If this is in fact the principle a Jehovah's Witness should use to make their own decisions on anything, where do we stand today on things like birthdays after this update? What about a birthday cupcake? Where are we on things like Christmas? That was thousands of years ago, as this awake says. No one thinks they're involved in some pagan Roman ritual anymore. Guaranteed no one, and I mean absolutely no one, is celebrating Christmas or birthdays as a form of pagan worship. And where I live, it means, I don't know, we're going on vacation. It means too many carbs. I'm going to get a little fatter, and giving the people you love presents while you all lay around in your pajamas together. That's what it means. So, where does this end, King Lett? By the way, I found myself wondering if he knew, even as he said this stuff, quoted his own literature, completely exposed himself, didn't seem to be picking up on it. I still sat there wondering if he knew that his very haircut, the necktie he's wearing, the fresh shave he has, and even his wedding ring, all of which you can see in Governing Body Update number 4, I wondered if he knew they all had pagan histories too. This is insane. It's insane. I truly, from the depths of my heart, hope Jehovah's Witnesses see this and fall out of their chairs. But he now addresses customs. They too can change according to the future heaven dweller. His first example is, I can't believe this, folks. The first example he wants to share with Jehovah's Witnesses, remember all the stuff I said at the beginning of this show? What's going on right now? Stephen Lett, nonetheless, wants us to believe that Jehovah and Jesus are pushing them to talk about this. He wants to use the ancient example of yawning. Yawning. You know, I'm tired. Ugh. But remember, he just said seconds ago, this organization is not controlling and wants you to make your own decisions. Yawning? You want to talk about yawning. You see, covering your mouth is tied to the religious belief that your soul was escaping your body. You thought sitting at the foot of your bed while you maul each other was bad. Just imagine the elders policing yawning. Oh my God. Jehovah's Witnesses walking around not covering their mouth, but because, they're yawning, they just kind of like, I just got to yawn, I can't be pagan, is just insane. But that's the example he points to, without realizing he's condemning himself and his own stupidity. Then, of course, he really goes for it, and he addresses wedding rings. See a past episode if interested. He then says Bethelites like to decorate their rooms with little twinkling lights, the string lights throughout the year. However, can't do his voice, wish I could, they take them down in November and December so no one thinks they're celebrating Christmas. Ah, hell, there it is. There goes my Christmas question from seconds ago. Apparently Christmas, thousands of years old, well, that one's still off the table. It's still pagan. And you can make your own decision on Christmas. Well, actually, no, you can't. Nope. Hold on to mommy's hand. As you can see by the Bethelites taking down twinkling lights in November and December. Should I hold on to your hand? Should I not hold on to your hand? Here it is. All of it minutes after telling Jehovah's Witnesses to make good decisions. Don't be man babies. But please still be a man baby. It's incredible. But then the moment we've all been waiting for. There's always a message. And as is the case with the annual meeting every year, by the way, it's coming up very soon. There's going to be new light. Could it be birthdays? Who knows? Jesus is very busy. He's very busy. And of course, also by means of the governing body updates, it is here that Jehovah's Witnesses learn what is really weighing on the minds of Jehovah and Jesus up there in heaven. It's July 2025, and Stephen has new light. What's the new light? What have Jehovah and Jesus moved the governing body by means of Holy Spirit to really be concerned about with all that's going on the planet, all the mayhem and the misery? Here it is. He continues by saying, quote, I'm trying, folks. Quote, another example is toasting or clinking glasses. For years, Jehovah's Witnesses avoided this practice because it had origins in false religion. This no longer has any religious association. It is viewed simply as a friendly custom. Therefore, after prayerful consideration, the governing body has concluded, let me back up and underline, the governing body has concluded that there is no need to make a rule regarding toasting or clinking glasses. Each Christian should use the principles from this update to make a good decision. Not the Bible, the update? Okay. The update. To make a good decision. Blah, blah, blah. Back to the quote. We are simply saying that there is no need to make a rule. End quote. Wow. Trust me when I tell you, I'm going to be taking that little soundbite, there's no need to make a rule, well into future episodes, because nothing beats a governing body member looking into the camera and saying there is no need to make rules, even as they are making rules. But wow, what a great snapshot of the Almighty God Jehovah. I started this podcast by telling the untold millions that are being brutally impacted by misery this week on this planet. And well, wow. With all of those things going on, Jehovah and the King of Jehovah's Witnesses, Jesus Christ, have been deeply concerned about toasting and clinking glasses. I mean, what does this say about them that clinking glasses in 2025 has been a dominant thought? It's so important, apparently, that they push the governing body to give Jehovah's Witnesses new light on toasting in July 2025. Could this be the reason Armageddon hasn't happened yet? Is this the reason? We needed to know that toasting was now okay. It doesn't have any religious impact. Neither does Christmas or birthdays, but that's still a rule. Doesn't matter. Toasting is now okay. Clink those glasses, my friends. You saw them. Suddenly men were showing up with beards. You can expect to see Jehovah's Witnesses at those picnics suddenly toasting. But whatever you do, don't be a man baby who can't cross the street without mommy or daddy. Make good decisions. And as the world burns under the painful weight of Satan and the demons, it's Jehovah that is very concerned that you know it's now okay, well, to clink glasses. Wouldn't it be something if Jehovah, Jesus, and the governing body gave this much attention to, I don't know, protecting children? Imagine what they could get done from the heavens. I sat here in awe. If you're left wondering why Jehovah made a rule about clinking glasses to begin with, you're my kind of person. You're not alone. Why did he even care about this to begin with? Even as they wore wedding rings. And as is the case with these all-wise 11 men in New York, they just don't seem to realize that we have proof of them making these rules in their literature. Did Jehovah not catch that? Because he allowed it to go on for decades. Did he just miss it? From the Watchtower of February 15th, 2007, questions from the readers, my kind of people, page 30 and 31. The question written in was, quote, the Bible does not mention toasting. Oh, Stephen Lett just commented on this. Remember, if there's not a law in the Bible, don't worry about it. The Bible does not mention toasting, so why do Jehovah's Witnesses avoid sharing in toasts? Let's listen to the all-wise answer. Quote, toasting today may not be viewed by many as a religious gesture. Wait, this was 2007. Wow, they already knew. Back to the quote, still, there are valid reasons, why Christians do not share in toasting, which has a religious background and even now can be viewed as asking heaven for a blessing. I'm sorry. I'm stifling laughter because people hate it. Let me back up. There are still valid reasons why Christians do not share in toasting, which has a religious background and even now can be viewed as asking heaven for a blessing, as if seeking aid from a superhuman force, end quote. That's a really interesting couple of sentences. In 2007, apparently it was okay to be a 30-year-old baby man who couldn't cross the street without mommy. In 2007, toasting was like asking the heavens for a blessing from a superhuman force. Wait a minute. Isn't that kind of what Jehovah's Witnesses do every time they pray, even at their meetings of Jehovah's Witnesses? Asking Jehovah for a blessing? I don't know. Call me crazy. It didn't matter. We had a rule in 2007. And if that counsel didn't convince you, consider the Awake of 1985, January 8th, page 27, under the very important article, Why the Clinking of Glasses, where we got the counsel, quote, have you ever noticed people at parties or in restaurants clinking their beverage glasses before taking a drink? If you ask them why they did this, most of them could not give you an answer, end quote, for a moment. The same goes for Jehovah's Witnesses as to why they're not doing it. Never mind. Back to the quote, or they may feel it is a harmless act. However, they may be surprised to learn that it is an ancient superstitious custom. Ooh. According to the American Library Association, thousands of years ago, people had the ridiculous notion that when they took a drink, the devil could enter their bodies through their open mouth. And they actually believed that this evil spirit could be frightened by noise. So to avoid this danger, they noisily banged their goblets. In Europe, drinkers still bash their beer steins or make the sign of the cross. And some primitive people, including certain Africans, will ring bells before downing their drinks. End quote. A wake of 85. They also didn't have running toilets or toilet paper, but let's not talk about that. And I'm here to say no more. Because in July 2025, apparently, Satan has now stopped climbing into our mouths when we open them to drink. Although you couldn't tell based on some of the drunk elders I've seen, you should see them when they get a few drinks in them. But no more. And with all that is going on earth today, I'm glad Jesus has his priorities straight. I personally am going to sleep so much better after governing body update number 4. You know, it made me think of things like this. Oh, I just fell down and I split my head open and I'm bleeding everywhere. Well, okay, but I just bought you a brand new pair of socks. Aren't they soft? What? Yeah, that's the reasoning here. Let's review, shall we? Let's review. Because that's what's going on this earth today under the leadership of the governing body. I gave you the stats from this week worldwide. Misery, violence, mayhem. And despite falling down and splitting open your head, they want to give you a brand new pair of socks. That's what this amounts to. You don't believe me? In recent years, Bethelite men have been told not to hump their pillows. Remember that one? Adult men were given permission to grow hair on certain parts of their body. Adult women were given permission to wear pants. Men, adults that is, were given permission to not wear a necktie or a suit coat. And now, adults are told they can clink their glasses together if they don't think it's a big deal, or that Satan's not around to climb through their mouth, or that it's invoking invisible spirits. It's okay. I'm here to tell you right now, and maybe it's the annual meeting that's about to happen in a few months. Next up, Jesus is going to give us all advice on how to load the toilet paper roll on the holder. Is it over or under? Let's have an argument, folks. Jesus will set the matter straight. This will be followed by Jesus telling us which sock to put on first. Do you put it on your left foot first or your right? I'm curious. Send me notes. But the governing body wants you to know that they don't make rules. And yes, according to Stephen Lett in this update, this all comes from the heavens. It comes from Jehovah. I can hear someone arguing with me right now. Stay tuned and go watch, because Stephen Lett then says this, quote, "What a blessing that Jehovah has given us these Bible principles," end quote. And yes, the same principles that have always been in the Bible and that the governing body has always completely ignored in favor of making rules. Incidentally, who remembers when we couldn't have wind chimes because that attracted the demons? Remember that one? Or repelled them, whatever. Wind chimes, they're very bad. I miss the 70s. For the younger people listening, by the way, yeah, that's real. Feel free to access that in the library. This, among so many other things, these were all rules. They're cherry-picking the easy stuff right now. And I want to say I called this 2 years ago. I'm sticking to it. Birthdays are going to become a conscience matter. I don't know about Christmas. I don't know. Birthdays, it's coming. We'll see how long it takes. Jehovah will suddenly turn his attention to that, even as floods wipe out a child camp in the state of Texas. If you're a loyal Jehovah's Witness following the governing body, obeying them, may I ask you a question sincerely, respectfully, warmly as I can? Why? What exactly do you need these 11 men for? I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I know it's uncomfortable. But in a quiet moment, the question is the same. Why does anyone need the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses? From the February 2017 Watchtower, page 26, paragraph 12. The same men Jehovah's Witnesses loyally obey, shun their kids for, die for, said this, quote, "The governing body is neither inspired nor infallible. Therefore, it can err in doctrinal matters or in organizational direction. In fact, the Watchtower Publications Index includes the heading Beliefs Clarified, which lists adjustments in our scriptural understanding since 1870. Of course, Jesus did not tell us that his faithful slave would produce perfect spiritual food." End quote. Toasting, clinking glasses. Seriously. This is what Jehovah and his son Jesus are concerned about in July 2025. Toasting at a wedding is how Jehovah has been using his love, justice, wisdom, and power to correct Jehovah's Witnesses. Don't do that. Jehovah has instead not considered, adjusting or changing his two-witness rule to child assault. He hasn't turned his attention to changing his rules on blood in medical emergencies. He hasn't gotten around to rules around shunning and shattering people and their families forever. Not even on explaining what we're all still doing here. Nothing from Jehovah. No clarification on how generations overlap. Nope. In their own words, they're neither inspired nor infallible. They err in doctrinal matters. Jesus never said they'd be perfect. So to all Jehovah's Witnesses bravely listening, cheers. I want to thank you for joining me this week, wherever you may be. Be well.